What's up, everybody? It's Dan Binder Boneyard coming at you from the new office, the upstairs. Still settling in up here, just trying to get some shelving up and get all my books put up and get stuff moved around. It's been an ordeal. You may hear the heater kick on and off because now that I'm in this room, it's closer to the big shop heater, the gas-fired furnace. So I apologize for any background noise, but yeah. Thank you, everybody, for still following along, still listening, still liking, sharing. Really helps when you tell other people or when you make suggestions that people listen on social media. Pick up some users, pick up some engagement. We are on YouTube. If you are going out of your way to listen on a podcast platform, but it's easier for you to use YouTube, you can find this podcast on YouTube also. If you're a Patreon subscriber, just so appreciate your donations and your help. That goes a long ways. If anybody else wants to be a Patreon donator, you can go as little as $2 a month. That is patreon.com, Binder Boneyard Podcast. You'll find my ugly picture there, and you can sign up to donate. And I appreciate every dollar that comes through. Definitely helpful. So we're closing out the year, last weekend of the year. And I was thinking about some of the things that I had heard and learned over the years. One of the things about being in this space is not my physical space, but space in space is I deal with a lot of older folks. A lot of these old guys are dying, and you end up buying their collections, or you meet them at the end of their life and they're trying to clean their place up and they're getting rid of stuff. And so I end up meeting a lot of elderly folks and I hear a lot of anecdotes and advice. So one thing that old guys have no shortage of is advice. And some of it is great and some of it is not so great. Because the other side of being old is that you're kind of out of touch with today's world. But even that, there is some application to a lot of these old phrases and advice. And so I think today's episode is I'm just going to talk about some of the things that these old dudes have told me. Perhaps you can take something away from it or agree with it, because I'm certain that a lot of you have heard these same bits of advice before from your older folks in your life or whatever. If you're a younger person and you don't have an old mentor or somebody to look up to, these might be new for you. So, but one thing. More than a few of these came from my grandpa, and then I also heard them later from other older folks. And so, it's just kind of funny. My grandpa, little backstory, born in Pendleton, Oregon in like the 30s. I don't know. He's passed away few years now. I don't remember exactly when he was born, but he was too young for World War II, but he ended up in Korea. He was in the Navy in Korea, got shot. And yeah, so he was a diesel mechanic and heavy equipment mechanic and pipeline welder. He was a rodeo clown, did a lot of stuff. They moved around the country a lot. until he settled down, after he had all my mom and my aunts. But anyways, big barrel chested guy, had huge hands, huge forearms. When he got a hold of you, he he laid a whooping on you, and you remembered it. He was just a block of iron. But anyways, one thing I remember, one of his anecdotes was, "You're not going to starve. Um, you could work all day. You don't have to eat. You don't have to, he would eat. If you put food in front of him, he would eat, and he would eat fast. That was a trademark of someone that was in the service, was you only had a certain amount of time to eat, and you needed to eat all of your food as fast as you could. So grandpa would shovel it in, and then the rest of the day would be a cigar and black coffee. He spent the majority of his life in Nevada, outside of Las Vegas, out there in Pahrump, building pole barns, and he had some rental properties and stuff like that. He's the one that kind of got me interested in building cars and restoring stuff. And so, it was always funny. I just remember him, like, food was not, at least in the younger days, the food was not important. The food will be there at the end of the day. There was always dinner or supper. But like, it wasn't like you needed to have snacks and stuff like that. I remember that, like, he had a thermos, the coffee in sometimes, and he smoked cigars. I remember that too, but it was always just funny that, food was a lower priority because, it just slowed you down. So, if you were working to lunchtime and then taking a lunch break and whatever, like, you didn't get as much done. And so, that was always something. And then another anecdote that I heard from him was, and I've heard this from other old guys too, was, if you always tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said. So, if you tell a lie, then you always have to remember that lie and maintain that lie. So if you just tell the truth, then if it ever comes up again, then you already know the story because it's true, and you're not having to maintain this lie, which is kind of funny because my grandpa was a huge bullshitter. Just like, he told a lot of stories that weren't true. But when you're a little kid, you don't realize it. It's not until later that, you figure out that maybe these stories were a little embellished or complete fabrications. But either way, the advice about not telling lies, that's important. And I still, to this day, remember that. I have been guilty of exaggerating every once in a while, but like, when a customer calls and says, "Hey, what's the status of my truck?" It's, "Hey, it's still on jack stands," or it's at this point or that point. I don't, sugarcoat a lot of stuff. And that's helped me a lot over the years of just, I only have so much brain power, and I talk to a lot of people. So, being truthful and not having to remember my fabrications is always, it's always good. So, and there's no reason to lie. Like, it just gets you into trouble. So I just remember that. The other thing that I heard from older dudes was, buy real estate as soon as you can. Buy dirt. God's not making any more of it, and so what's on the earth is all we got. And so the soon as you can get your hands on some land, you should do it. I did not take this advice until 6 years ago when we bought the shop, because I was always trying to, I was accumulating small parts so that someday I could, when I bought the shop or bought land, then I could jump right into it, instead of the other way around, being land poor and then not having, the money to buy tools or whatever. But I figured out now with the cost of everything, I could have bought a house in Oregon City in 1998 for like $48,000. And that house today would be worth about $400,000. I know real estate is terrible and whatever. But yeah, it was, I should have done it back then. I could have sold it midway through for, double and moved into something else, and, could have had a pretty nice house and shop set up now had I done all that back then. But, hindsight is always 2020. Luckily, we were able to get into the shop before things went really crazy. But even though for you young folks that even if it's crazy now, still get into it. Try whatever you can do to get into something, even if it's cheap and run down and it's a fixer upper or whatever, or it's bare dirt and you got to put something on it. Try to do it, because to have that security down the road, to have a place that's yours is well worth it. I was kicked out of two different shops before I ended up here. And I wasn't kicked out because I was a bad tenant. I was kicked out because the landlord decided to sell, and instead not offer it to me, but offer it to, one of their buddies or somebody else. And so, now that I own this space, I can't be removed as easily. So that was a lesson that I learned from that, is to, buy dirt as soon as you can, because you could always sell it for, to help leverage yourself later or whatever. But yes, get your hand on some land. Another one that old folks like to talk about is saving. And that's a good practice. The bare minimum they say is 10%. Grandpa always said, set aside 10% of everything that comes through the door. And, you put that into an account that you don't touch. Anymore, the banks are pretty questionable and the interest rates are terrible, or they were. And, you did better off in like an Edward Jones or some, investment account, which I think is still true. But having some money in the bank for easy access, like maybe you funnel off your Edward Jones earnings every year into a savings account at the bank that's still, going to earn some interest, but it's at your fingertips so that you can have it for an emergency or whatever. It's important. I'm not sure I would go full Dave Ramsey and do, 10 months of your income set aside for when you lose your job or something like that. But it's a good goal to save for stuff, because living paycheck to paycheck, and I know it's hard. I struggle. Our sales are down this month by quite a bit. Christmas is always slow for us because we don't really sell Christmas gifts. We sell international parts, and, it picks back up in January, but, it's slow, and, it's hard to set aside any money, when you're breaking even on your bills and everything else. So I get it. But what you don't realize is that even if you save, $20 a month out of your paycheck, what's that? 3 monsters or something. Just, you can set aside, and, after, a few months, you've got a little bit there. Maybe you can adjust your lifestyle a little bit to set a few more dollars aside. And after a few years, you've got a few $1,000s that is there for an emergency, or for down payment on a piece of land, or, whatever. It's so, saving has always been something that's been stressed upon me by a lot of old timers. And like I said, I am no financial expert. I don't save as much as I should. I burn a lot of money putting it back into the business. I buy a lot of parts. I buy a lot of parts trucks. I buy, instead of putting that $1,000 in the bank, I buy, an $800 C Series pickup that was for sale, because I know that we can part it out and turn that into $4,000. So I keep doing that, but saving is very, very important. Another good one that I love about old guys, and I'm sorry, I'm not being sexist. It's just I don't have a lot of advice from old women. I've spent most of my time with old men, so that's what I'm regurgitating here. One of the other great old guy things is cash. They love cash. My grandpa had $1,000 in his pocket all the time, no matter what, because he bought some stuff. He made some deals on things when people were desperate. When he was at a garage sale and saw something, and made some deals, got some good prices on stuff that you probably wouldn't have got if he did not have the cash in his pocket right at that moment. And that's a good trait of just being I hate to use the term wheeler dealer, but I've scored some stuff, just being able to negotiate, because you got a roll of hundreds in your pocket that people want right now. So I always try to keep. I'm at the other end of that spectrum. I'll have like $100 in my pocket because I just can't justify carrying $1,000 around, and I don't want that liability on me. It makes me nervous having that much money in my wallet in today's world, because I don't want to have to shoot somebody in the face because they wanted my $1,000. But that being said, cash. I've gotten to where I really enjoy paying for stuff with it at the store. It's faster than your card. It's more, what's the word? It's just more, cut and dried. It's done. You hand them the money, they hand you the change, and that's the end of the transaction. But if you use your card, then the process hits your bank, and then it takes a day for it to come out of your bank account. And then, if there's a problem or you're not paying attention to your bank balance and you overdraw or, whatever, it's like, if you do it with cash, then it's done and there's not going to be any surprises later. And so I'm really trying to transition more into cash and less card. And it helps you understand where your money's going, because it's so easy to just swipe or tap. And I definitely don't put any electronic payment like on my phone. I don't have a wallet on my phone where I can just tap my phone to pay for stuff, because then it ends up getting out of control that way. So another good one from the old guys was just cash. Just cash is king. I know the world is trying to get away from it, and that scares me. And I think that the more people that are using cash, that'll help offset that a little bit more. And then of course, one of my favorite ones was about tools. Always, and this has proven true as I've gotten older, and the more I've done this, is buy the best that you can afford. I know guys that swear by Harbor Freight, and honestly, Harbor Freight's not as cheap as it used to be. I think there's some Icon socket or Icon ratchets that are, $60, when the same style, same size, same comparable one through like SK is $75. And then the same one through Snap-on is $110. So, the cheap tool brands aren't as cheap as they used to be, but buy the best you can afford. And I'm not saying, Snap-on for everything. Trust me, my toolbox is a mixture of swap meet, Craftsman and some new SK and a little bit of Snap-on. I've got a Snap-on torque wrench and some specialty Snap-on drivers, sockets, square drive sockets and stuff like that. But, like I said, hit the swap meets and look for the best that you can find there. The Klein, pliers, that sort of stuff. There's different brands for different tools that are better than others. The Milwaukee battery powered tools are, in my opinion, superior to even, Snap-on and the tool truck power tools. So don't get married to a brand, but buy the best that you can afford. So do your research, find out what's good, what's not, and buy the best that you can. So that, like I said, save up, wait for the sales, wait for the Black Fridays, wait for, maybe it's on eBay or Amazon or something like that. I hate supporting those giant corporations. I'd much rather buy tools from the swap meet where that cash is going right into that vendor's pocket and not to some faceless corporation. But we can't always wait for the swap meets. You don't always find what you need at the swap meet. So if you're going to buy from the big stores or Amazon, try to do it when it's on sale or you've got a coupon or whatever. And again, I have a few Harbor Freight things, because I kind of bought them to be like emergency one-time use, what do I got down there? Power steering puller. I bought because I only use it a few times a year, and it was an emergency, and I bought it. But I am saving up for a quality one here pretty soon. And that was the other thing too. I was buying a lot of junky tools because my employees kept breaking them, or losing them, or abusing them, and just And I was like, fine, I'm not going to spend $400 for the Snap-on Pitman arm puller. I'm going to spend $80 for the OTC Pitman arm puller, which is still good. OTC is a quality brand, but it's, less expensive than Snap-on. And sure shit, both of them have got broken by employees. So I'm glad that I didn't spend $400 on a high-end one. Now that I have gotten rid of most of the employees and my one employee has most of the tools he needs, then I'm going to buy a good one for me. Because it's amazing how I can make stuff last for 10, 15 years, but an employee will break it in the first 6 months that they're here. So that leads me to the next one, which is don't loan your tools out. That was always taught to me. You spend a lot of hard-earned money on these things that, if you're in the trade, they are your livelihood. Somebody breaks something that you need to make money with, then you're out. And so it's important to not loan your tools out, to lock your tools up. I've had 2 toolboxes stolen out of the back of my truck over my life, and it hurt both times. And trying to rebuild that, resupply, it's expensive. So, as far as tools go and that sort of thing, don't loan them out. I've had that somebody's asked me, hey, can I borrow this? And I actually end up taking my tool, going over to what they're working on, doing it for them, so I know they won't mangle my tool, and then going back to what I was doing. And some of that's because I'm the boss, but also because I don't trust them to not break it. So keep that in mind. If you've got a garage, you got kids and they're using your stuff and you don't know what's going where, then that's when I would suggest the Harbor Freight or cheaper tool sets. Was it Performance Tool or whatever they sell at O'Reilly's? Get a basic set of those, and then when they get lost or broken, or when your extension gets used as a punch or a chisel, it's not the end of the world because because kids don't know the difference between good and bad, unless you teach it to them, which I found is not happening as much these days. A lot of hands-off parenting. And so when I get these young guys coming in the shop, they don't know, anything. And I'm like, didn't you have somebody to mentor you or teach you how to use a ratchet? And they're like, no. Like, what happened to your dad? Oh, he was never around. My folks got divorced when I was 3 and never saw my dad. So it's like, yeah. So if you got good stuff, don't loan it out. Have a backup kit that's cheap. The tools I keep in the service bed of my green truck are swap meet, cheap tools. I definitely don't let the good stuff go out in the service truck just for that reason. Lose a socket in the dirt, somebody steals it, whatever. It's not the end of the world. So anyway, that was kind of a smattering of things that I have learned and heard over the years. Some of it I followed, some of it I did not follow, but good little pieces of advice. I'm sure there's a lot more, and I'm sure in the comments I'll hear several of your guys' anecdotes, and maybe I mention them in another future podcast. But for now, that's we're going to call that a life lesson, and we'll be back to technical stuff next week. And I'm going to try to really be consistent about knocking these things out. And I'm hoping to kind of update and improve the podcast experience in the next year. I've got some ideas and got some things I want to do. So hopefully everybody enjoys those. So until next time, I love every single one of you and appreciate your dedication. And I am Dan from Binder Boneyard.